Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start this with an opening prayer led by Art Gentry.
Heavenly Father, this day we ask for your guidance and blessings on all who lead and guide the direction of our country. We ask your help to stop the scourge of abortion and euthanasia, that those in healthcare will value life and encourage life and encourage the will to live and not the will or the misguided will to die. May all that we do, therefore, be for thy greater honor and glory. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. How many people are a veteran in here? I'm a vet. Art, how old are you compared to me? You're gonna have to pass up tonight. You gotta do it. You can't get away.
My nose get okay.
Yeah.
70.
You're 70. Well, Art, you get to do it. Well, Myron, you're a veteran or no? No. Are you a vet? Anybody else a veteran here?
I am.
No? Huh?
I'm a member of the American Legion, but I'm not a veteran.
Okay, all right, all right. Well, Art, you get double duty tonight. Well, hey, wait a minute. Al, is Al a veteran? No.
He's not a veteran.
All right, well,
Okay, so
you get
just
double
a-
duty tonight.
Pledge of allegiance then.
That's right.
Okay. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have our strong singing voices here, so I'm going to not embarrass myself here by singing a solo on the patriotic song.
I agree.
And thank you. I'm glad you agree with that one without even emotion. So the minutes, as you all know, are working out very well on video. I've got your link there if you need it. The simplest thing is to go to the website and click on it if you want to. And they're up there. And
well, if that's only for the last one.
Right.
When I correct the audio, that's probably gonna change.
Nevertheless, what I'm telling them now is just go to the website, you click on meetings, and go in there and click your link, and that'll always be current. The treasurer's report is on the back side, and Troy Newman is our treasurer. He almost never attends, but obviously we have our head above water. No red ink here, but that's where we're at. I'll entertain a motion to accept that treasurer's report as printed.
Also moved.
So moved by Art.
I didn't get
Go ahead.
the
Oh.
one that was printed.
There you
May
go.
I have one?
You sure can. Oops, wait a minute.
Oh,
That's the one. I
There's more over here.
There you go. There you go. Okay.
yes, please.
Okay. So we have a motion by Art Gentry. I need a second for that motion. Myron, I think you. Oh, okay. Al is going to second that. All in favor of approving our treasurer's report as printed on the back of the meeting agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So we are at $678.42. So we'll be taking care of that here soon. Okay, so tonight we have the pleasure of having Kelly Arnold here. I'm absolutely honored to have him here, and I really apologize for not having a bigger crowd. But
it's
you know, I
politics.
send
It's
out
all right.
1,510 emails, and I never know what I'm going to get. Sometimes we pack the room and you can't get people in. And I guess tonight we are competing with a basketball game, and I think mostly the nice weather outside.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty nice.
speak to the camera.
Yep.
People will be able to look at it later. Kelly Arnold first started his notoriety in Wichita, at least as far as I know, was when he was elected county party chairman, a position I served in the past. And he served that from 2009 to 2011. He was the Sedgwick County chair. And then between 2011 all the way to 2013, he was vice chair of the state Republican Party. And then in 2013, at a big election in Topeka, Kansas State, he was elected as chairman of the Kansas Republican Party and has done an outstanding job since. He's done a real good job. I looked at a few numbers. I didn't actually analyze this totally, but I think he is either the most, or certainly one of the most, you can say that, one of the most successful state party chairmen in terms of elected, the results of the elections. So one of the most successful party chairmen in the history of our state, which is saying a lot. That really is. He's also the co-founder of the men's leadership series. He was elected Sedgwick County Clerk in 2008. That's his daytime job, his full-time job. And he's chairman of KPERS, the Kansas Investment Fund for retirement of all our state employees, including the teachers. He is overseeing $20 billion of your tax money. So maybe we should salute this guy. I'm not sure. So anyway, welcome Kelly Arnold, and let's hear what he has to say.
All right, well, thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. And I think what we'll talk a little bit about tonight is I'll start talking a little bit about my campaign for Secretary of State, and I'll tell you a little bit more about myself, and then we can move into state Republican Party, federal, national Republican activities, and go from there. And of course, I know all you guys in the room, and you're very in tune with what's going on, so look forward to taking any questions you have and or any input you have too, because part of my role as being state party chairman is getting the input from what's going on in the ground. What are you guys seeing? What are you guys hearing? And that kind of thing. So please feel free to share some of your thoughts. Well, I'll start tonight just tell you a little bit more about my background. Mark did a good job of summarizing a few of the highlights of my career. But I am a fifth generation Kansan, born in McPherson, Kansas, just north of here. After that, I went to Tabor College, which is in Hillsborough, Kansas. Tabor College is a private Christian college of about 500 to 600 students. And I got 2 degrees there. I got a business finance and a business management degrees. After that, when a lot of my friends were going out of state to live, such as Colorado and Dallas and Oklahoma and California, I decided I wanted to stay here in Kansas. And so I moved to Wichita and took a job as a financial representative. This is something that I've had a lot of passion for. Finance has been one of those things. I love numbers. I love working with people. And you can put those 2 things together and really work with people trying to either plan for their life, what investments they need to make, how much money they may need to accomplish certain goals, or even just for retirement. And I really enjoyed that, but I needed something a little bit more and wanted to get involved more in the community here in Wichita. And so I actually was driving down the road and a radio commercial came on, and it was about a political event where basically all the conservative Republicans running for statewide office were going to have a big rally. And so I was like, interesting. I like politics. I think I'm a conservative. So I go. So I went to this thing, and they had, this is 2002. You'll remember all this. This is when Tim Schellenberger was running for governor.
Oh, yeah.
Phil Klein, Attorney General. And we had a whole list of all the conservatives running for statewide office. Had a big rally at the airport hangar at Jabbar Airport. So I go up and I just sign up on a piece of paper, and about 2 weeks later I get a phone call from a lady that says, "Hey, you signed up for wanting to come help work on a campaign. Would you like to come down?" Sure, I'll take a day off from working as a financial representative, come down and help out. So they put me to work putting together yard signs. Loved it. Got to meet all these people coming in and out of the office. So they're like, "You can come back again if you want to." I was like, "I'll be back tomorrow." And 6 months later, we ended up, winning some of the races in that election cycle, and I had a blast. And the reason why I got involved, everybody usually gets involved in politics for a couple of reasons. It's either or a specific issue. For me, around that time was that Kansas was fighting to try to get concealed carry. I enjoy shooting and hunting, and so I wanted concealed carry. So I wanted to get involved in that, and I wanted to work for pro-life candidates. And so once I started volunteering, all these people would come in and volunteer also in these campaigns. And that's where you really start to get a better understanding of what all issues are out there. I mean, because there's so many issues that we want to be educated on, and then take a good stance and a position on it. So I credit all the volunteers that have came into these campaign offices over the years to help shape my foundation of why I'm a conservative Republican, why I'm definitely why I'm pro-life, and why I believe in the Republican Party principles that we have. So when that was over, I continued to work in the political side of things, and in 2008 I decided, you know what, I'm going to run for office myself. There was a position that was going to be opening up. I love working with people. I love the administration side of stuff. And so when the Sedgwick County Clerk office opened up, I was like, I'm going to go for it. So ended up running and had a successful election, and got elected 2008. I'm now in my third term there, and just love the job that I do. Sedgwick County is a great place to work at. I mean, the people that work there, what you get to do. I get to run a team of about 25 people and manage numerous activities. One of the two biggest things that we do is we set everybody's mill rate for taxes, and work with all the county and governing bodies with their budgets, the appraiser's office with the valuations, and set the property tax rate. Now, I don't set the valuations and I don't set the budget, so if you ever complain, I will tell you, you either need to go talk to the appraiser or talk to the city council, because it's them that actually do it.
The buck stops there.
Yeah, I just worked the calculator. But and then we process real estate. So everybody that comes down to my office, submits a deed with the Register of Deeds office, but it's our office that actually goes into the system and swaps out, who bought the house and who sold the house, and get all that information updated in the system. Every day we have people that come down to the county clerk's office, with some issue. And that's the part I think I love. I love taking people by the hand and saying, all right, what is the problem? What do you need? How can we help? And how can really I help you navigate through the bureaucracy of government? And a lot of people, it's not just starting in my office, but it's, you may have to go from my office to another office to another office. And we're not just going to send you away. We're going to take you from each office to help you work through whatever the process is. So I've really, really enjoyed that. Part of being a county clerk is I've been a member of the Kansas County Clerks and Elections Officials Association for 10 years. These are all the clerks that run the elections in the state of Kansas. And I've been able to build great relationships with pretty much all of them, and get a full understanding of what it is it takes to run secure elections. And so part of this is why I have decided to run for Secretary of State. I believe that I have what is necessary to run an efficient office, an efficient administration, and to run secure and safe elections. Right now, as many of you guys know, security is one of the top issues with the elections. You hear about the Russians. You hear, are they meddling? Are they meddling, or are they hacking into our systems? We need to make sure that we have, in Kansas at least, because that's what we control, the most secure elections possible. We can do this with a couple different ways. First of all, we need to make sure that we have secure software. We do have software that runs on a statewide level, but we need to make sure it's the best. And I can tell you that there are definitely upgrades that need to be made now in the Secretary of State's office. We also need to make sure we have the right election equipment. What many people don't know is the election equipment you guys go vote on. Sedgwick County, we just got new stuff about two elections ago. But the rest of the state, most of the election equipment that they use was bought with HAVA money. HAVA money was given to the states by the federal government after Bush v. Gore, because they wanted to make sure we didn't have the hanging chads. You all remember that, right? Oh, yeah. And so they wanted to make sure each state does not have that issue again, so they provided funding for states to upgrade their equipment. Well, that's been 15 years ago. I mean, think of the technology and the advances we've had since then. And, so we need to make sure our county clerks that are implementing these elections have the best equipment possible. And it is out there. And, Sedgwick County has just got that. One of the key things with Sedgwick County's equipment, which I would like to help the other counties do, is make sure there's a paper trail for every vote. Not just some numbers here, but you actually have on paper who you voted for. Because, working with the party, I don't know how many times each election I will get a call from somebody saying, you know what, I pushed this candidate on that machine and the other candidate popped up. And they're like, I swear I hit it, but it shows the other name. Well, if you have a paper trail readout, you know that who you voted for and who's going to get that vote. So we got to make sure that they have the right equipment as well. The other thing is we need to make sure we have stable rules and laws for the election officers and the county clerks to implement elections. That has been one of the issues over the last few years. We have had a significant amount of legislative change, of federal change on how to operate elections. Not just that, but on interpretation of rules from the Secretary of State's office. And on top of that, if you notice, there have been a few court cases that have happened that have dictated how the county clerks are supposed to run elections. Well, some of these court cases come down literally the day before they have to be printing ballots to get ballots to people. Or you have a court that says a certain Democrat Senate candidate cannot be on the ballot for the Democrat Party. We had that issue, in 2014. And that was done right before pretty much, they needed to start preparing the ballots. Well, the election commissioners and county clerks need stability in the office, and that's something that I will bring to that office. Make sure that they know exactly, how to run these elections. As county clerks, we are on an email system. We talk to each other. Right now, county clerks are talking to other county clerks on how do you do this, how do you do that, how do you do this. Well, there's a rule, there's a policy, there's a law, there's guidelines, from courts on this. They should be asking that question to the Secretary of State and getting those answers back from the Secretary of State, so everybody's getting the same message, not different clerks talking to each other on how they do stuff. So it should be uniformed across the state. Part of one of the issues is, we need to make sure we have adequate staff in the Secretary of State's office with the elections division, and so that is one area we continue to make accomplishments on. One other subject of the Secretary of State's office, most people focus on the election aspect of it. The majority of the office is actually business services in two different areas. One, working with the customers such as people that want to start a business. Kansas is a very entrepreneurial state. We have a lot of people that are creating here, starting companies here. But if you want to have a company, you have to, file your paperwork to get that corporation and that protection. Well, you do that through the Secretary of State's office, and every year you have to refile every year your documents from this. I mean, you want to register your name, Kansas Republican Assembly. I know you have that registered with the Secretary of State's office. You have to file that every year. Well, the technology in that division is a mainframe computer. You're talking a system that was built back in the 70s. It costs a lot of money to maintain that system. We need to be able to bring that into today's world of having an efficient system, something that will be significantly cheaper to run, but also be more efficient. That's one of the things that I'll highlight as a county clerk. First thing I did when I came in the county clerk's office is we took out our mainframe system that we were processing everything on and upgraded it to an actual server-based, now we're actually in the cloud, server-based system. Well, because of that, I've been able to reduce staff. I've changed the way the processes go, so I've been able to make things more efficient. Usually if you filed a deed in a register of deeds office, it may be a couple weeks by the time our office was able to process all that and get it into the book so it updates the system. Well, we've had this system in place for several years now, and we're no more than a day or two behind. I mean, there's many days our people are like, yep, we got everything accomplished, so we are caught up. And almost every day I start to hear that. So there's a lot of efficiencies you can make with upgrading computer system software. Because of these upgrades I made in the clerk's office, I've been able to return over $400,000 back to the Sedgwick County taxpayers on that. So those are successes. Now, it's important, I will say this, it is important that in Kansas, we, first of all, elect and nominate the best candidate for Secretary of State. And it is imperative that Republicans hold the office of Secretary of State this year. And I'll tell you why. George Soros and his cronies, and you all know who George Soros is, he has already gathered people together, have raised over $5 million specifically to target Secretary of State races across the country. He's already announced at least 7 states that he's going to target, and Kansas is going to be one of these top ones. Why? Because look who our Secretary of State is now, Chris Kobach. One of the most visible Secretary of States in the nation. Well, what do they want to do? The Democrats want to win. Well, 2/3 of all Secretary of States and those that run the elections in the country are Republican. So we have most of these positions as Republicans. Well, for them, they think to win, they know how they play. They want the Democrats to control the elections. Well, what does that mean here in Kansas? They're going to try to roll back the policies that we had done to secure our elections. They want to roll back voter ID, something very simple that I think every state should have. They want to roll back the proof of citizenship. So they want to roll these policies back so it makes it easier for the Democrats to win. And so we have to stop that, and that's why we got to make sure we have the right candidate that can win. I've spent over the last 10 years traveling around the state, working with county Republican parties, working with organizations to try to help build their organizations in the respective counties. I have traveled around the state with numerous campaigns to get people elected. And so I feel like I come to this with the best experience, the most experience for not just running an office, but be able to run a statewide campaign. I have a built-in statewide network that I've put together with all these relationships that I've made over these years. So it is imperative that we win this, and that on the Republicans we all come out and support each other. I'll tell you what. I'll just stop at that for some of my Secretary of State stuff. If you have any questions on that, happy to ask, and then I'll get into the rest of the national Republican stuff.
Real good. If you don't mind, I'm going to take the first question, and this might spur other questions, and I'll do the last. But my first question would be, Kansas is a state that has kind of like a dual system. We have some counties with a election commission office, and then other counties are using their county clerk's office.
Correct.
And that I'm not sure. Maybe that's the only way it can be. Maybe that's the most efficient way. Is that the best way to do it, or is there a better way? Should we have a uniform system throughout all 105 counties?
So we have 105 counties, right? Used to have 106, one went away. The county clerks run the elections, are also the election officer in each of those counties, except for counties that are over a certain population. Right now, that's 4 counties. That's Sedgwick, Shawnee, Johnson, and Wyandotte. So there's 4 counties that have an election commissioner. The election commissioner is appointed by the Secretary of State, and so those roles are split. As a county clerk, looking at the duties that I do in the largest or second largest, depending on which census you want to look at, county in the state, I sit there and look at it and say, there's a lot of responsibility that the county clerk does. There is a lot of responsibility the election commissioner does. So I think that model works, because then the election commissioner can focus full year, their full time on running elections. And there is plenty of work to be able to do that full year. I sit there and look at, when I'm at my Kansas County Clerks and Election Officials meetings, our meetings are dominated by election, training, election topics. In fact, most of the stuff we do as county clerks, it's just a very small part of what our meetings is, or what our meetings are. So I actually support the idea of having 2 different positions in that. Actually, Douglas County is the next county is probably going to get an election commissioner. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but it's going to be relatively soon.
Should the number be lowered, maybe, or
it might be. I think mid-sized counties, and I'm trying to.
And
recall.
then just have one person.
I think it's 80. I think it's 80,000 people or more. You have an election commissioner. I have to double check on that, but yeah. So then you actually are. I think it's a good service to the public and to not only candidates running, the elected officials, but also to the voters to know that you have somebody that's dedicated on these elections, and especially in these large counties. And then the county clerks can focus on because about county clerks, we have a wide spectrum of what our job description is. I'm in a large county, so I am very focused on specific roles of property, real estate, taxes. Business licensing. You go to a county that has, say, 2,000 or 3,000 people in their whole county. Well, that county clerk is also the county administrator. They don't have a county manager or a county administrator. The county clerk is. So they do payroll, they do HR, they do maintenance, facilities. I don't do those in my role.
Right.
The county does.
Right.
So some of these smaller counties, they have to do like double duty. So the topic on this issue is kind of the control. The counties want to have more control of that county election commissioner. They're appointed by the Secretary of State. They technically kind of run their own budget. Some counties want to say they need to abide by our policies, even though, because the county has to pay for their salaries and their positions. So there's a little back and forth over that aspect of things. You have a couple counties, such as Douglas and Wyandotte, that are more Democrat-controlled counties that have, their commissioners and the county clerks are Democrats, but the election commissioner is Republican because they're appointed by a Republican Secretary of State. So some of those counties want to change that because they wanted a Democrat.
Right.
So there's different aspects into this question, so it's a good question. They've had a lot of good debate on this.
Okay, Art, you go ahead with your question. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I got a couple of questions.
Shoot.
In the election commissioner's office, how many are paid workers versus volunteer workers?
Yeah. So in election commissioner, you're talking about like Sedgwick County.
Sedgwick County.
Yeah. So Tabitha is election commissioner, and she has about 10 paid full-time people. That number used to be much higher years ago. It's gone down, it's fluctuated, and I think they're at about the right spot. Now, they need a lot more people than that to run the elections. So you think all these polling locations that they have, you have to have a judge for that district, you have to have a couple extra workers. So I believe during an election cycle, especially in a presidential, that number goes to about 1,300 people. Because you got to think how many people it takes to have all these, not just in the regular polling places, but then you have to have people that are the support teams that are supporting these locations. Well, they got a couple machines that went down. Well, you got to send a support team over there to make sure these machines are running right. You got people that have to be at the headquarters managing all the ballots that are coming back in, all the advanced voter ballots that get mailed out. Right now, we're running over 50% of the people that vote in Sedgwick County is done by mail, not at the polling place. So, you have to run all those things through the machines. So you got people literally just standing there running them through the machines. So they like I said, the skeleton crew that actually is the main workers is about 10, but that significantly, goes up. And those positions, some are there for a couple weeks, some are there for literally, a day and a half. They come in and get their training. And then on election day, they're there from the morning to evening. It's an important job, and it's tough to actually find people to do that. They're willing to be there all day.
You mentioned the word judge. Is that about a...
So you have, in a typical polling place, you have, say, maybe 5 to 7 workers, right? You got 2 or 3 that are checking you in at the poll books. Then you have 2 or 3 to kind of, escorting you to your station to vote. The one person, there's got to be one person that's the head in that specific polling location. Well, they're called a judge, and so it's basically they're the team leader of that group. So they can, there's not much authority they have, but they can help make rulings right then and there of if there's a question about the poll book or somebody's ID or something like that. They can help answer and make that ruling. And of course, a lot of times they immediately are calling Tabitha down at headquarters saying, so this is the issue we had. So, and then if Tabitha needs to communicate to each of these polling locations, she's communicating to those judges so then they can relay it to their teams. Yeah.
By the way, I like that paper trail method because 2 years when I first started that, my wife and I went down to the election commissioner's office to do advance voting.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing they asked me about, after I voted. And they said, how did you like that? And I said,
It's good. Yeah.
When you ask your question, speak up. Did you have a question, Myron?
Oh, good. No.
Okay.
I'm happy to move on to other Republican stuff.
Any other questions over here? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead. Let's move on.
Well, as you all know, we have an election in 2018. on a national level, on a statewide, and everything. So I'm just going to touch on a few things. Again, if you have questions while I'm speaking, I'm happy to stop and answer, so you don't have to remember them for later. But I'll touch on the Kansas Republican Party.
You want something to drink? Or you okay?
I'm good for now.
You sure?
Yeah, that's fine. If she comes back, water would be fine. But we had our state party convention in February, and it was here in Wichita, and it's actually our most successful convention that we in history even know we had. We had over 800 people attend this thing. I think several of you had popped in. I saw so many faces. And so yeah, we had over 800 people participate in our convention this year. Typically, we see honestly between 300 to 400 in a typical convention. So what that shows is there is a lot of excitement with what's going on here in Kansas with our candidates and the election coming up. And the other thing that we did that was different that we had not done in the past is we had the first governor's debate. I was going to talk about this here in a second when I'm talking about the candidates, but we had the first official governor's debate sponsored by the Kansas Republican Party, and ended up being a really great success. In fact, we're having 3 more. Our next one is going to be April 13th in Atchison, Kansas. We're trying to move them around the state, and each one's going to have different topics that they're going to be hitting on. This first one is kind of more of a general debate, but the next ones will be more topic specific. But as you know now, we really have about 4 candidates on the governor's race. We have all quality candidates. Kansas Republican Party is in the state is so overwhelming Republican, and we have so many great people, and so that's why you'll see at not just on a statewide level but local levels so many primaries. But in Kansas, we're used to primaries. We know how to deal with primaries. We fight hard. We work to get our voters out, but at the end of the day, once we have our nominee, we all come back together and say, okay, we got to make sure we beat the Democrats in November, and so we are very experienced at that. So that's why I'm not too worried about the fact that we have multiple candidates running for governor. We will be there to help our candidate get across that line in November once we know who our nominee is. A couple comparisons I'll just throw out here. Democrats, for the first time in 20 years, have a primary. They have not had a primary since the mid to early 90s. It's going to be interesting to see what it's like, because over the years you have seen Democrats change their voter registration to Republican to vote in our Republican primaries, and then they'll switch back to Democrat. And they do it for 2 reasons. They do it either because they want to try to vote for our weak Republican candidate,
right?
Or there's not really a Democrat in that race, so they want to vote for the Republican that they believe is more Democrat-like. And so that's kind of their philosophy. Well, this time, nobody's going to be switching over to Republicans, so we're actually going to see these Democrats staying in the Democrat primaries, because they have not only a primary for governor. The 3rd district, they have a number of candidates running for Congress over there. They technically have a primary in the 2nd district, and they have a primary here in the 4th district. And so they're going to be staying to vote for those races. They had 3 candidates, and y'all remember Governor Kathleen Sebelius. Well, she wasn't very happy with the 3 candidates that they had, so she went out and recruited her own. Well, she found out her little assistant that she had when she was governor, and recruited Laura Kelly. And so Laura Kelly is now Governor Sebelius' hand-picked candidate to run for the Democrat Party. So we'll see what comes out from them and who they put up against our candidate. You also know that Greg Orman has decided he wants to come back and run for office as an independent. That's going to be interesting, because when he ran as an independent in 2014, there was no Democrat on the ballot. So he not only got the Democrat support, but he tried to play himself off as an independent. Well, that was false. Everybody kind of knew that. So he was purely going after Democrat voters, going after Democrat money. Well, what do you think he's going to do now? He's already got a built-in base of support from these Democrats. He's going to reach right back to these Democrats for votes. He's going to reach right back to these Democrats for money. And so I like to look at it. The Democrats really are going to have 2 candidates on the ballot this time. Now that's not. I think it's good. That's not to say that we are able to take a breather because of that.
No,
You
no,
know,
yeah.
we still have to be working just as hard as we would if it's just a Democrat versus a Republican.
Yeah.
The one thing I will point out, and I was very impressed with, that shows the support that we still have for all of our Republican candidates here, is the amount of money that was raised in these 2017 reports that were filed. The Democrats in total raised just a couple $100,000 between all their candidates. The Republicans, millions. I mean, you know, each of our top candidates raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't think any of our top 4 or 5 or 6 candidates were under $250,000. So we raised a lot of money as Republican candidates, which means our people still are there to support our candidates, which is very big. I will equate that to what's going on at the national level. On the national level, the RNC is out raising the DNC 2-1. We have raised, well, I'll just say for the last year, 2017, we've raised about $135, $140 million, and Democrats raised like 60. Okay, 2-1 fundraising, and these are not big dollar contributions. Most of our contributions coming in are small dollar, and small dollar for the national level is considered at $200 and less. So most of the money coming in for the RNC is at $200 or less. What does that mean? That means the grassroots is still there for us. The grassroots are going to be coming out again. You know, we saw in the early part of the year of 2017 where we had multiple replacement elections for to replace 4 congressional seats. You know, Republicans won all those. Democrats thought they had a chance. They put a ton of money into it, but our voters still came out. Now, I will say Democrat voters and their base are very motivated. They are out because they want to take out Trump, which means they want to take out all the Republicans. So they are very, very motivated. When we saw during some of the campaigns, you know, your Saturday walk, you know, when you go get your volunteers and go knock on doors, Democrats were getting 3-4 to 1 the number of volunteers to come out to help those candidates. So they're motivated. That doesn't mean our people aren't motivated either, but we got to make sure we give them the reason of why they need to come out to not only the ballot box in August, but the ballot
That
box
has
in November.
always amazed me, is how they get, it's been that way since the 70s, my gosh. They always have more motivated troops and the precinct committee men and women. I don't know where they get it. I don't know what they feed them. This is just amazing.
Yeah, this is definitely, especially on the national level and everything, it is like that. Now, go ahead.
Well, I think it's just my opinion, I'm not all that educated, but it just seems common sense to me is, why do we let them play ball and switch back and forth between the parties to get what they want? Why isn't that considered crooked?
Are you talking about like the registering to vote part, or are you talking about?
When they go back and forth, I'm a Republican, and then first thing you know, I'm a Democrat, and then first thing you know, I'm back to the Republican. That shouldn't be allowed.
It's just talking about switching parties.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more, and that stuff we've tried to fight, and actually one of the things that the Republican Party, what we put forth to the legislature a few years ago, was we moved that date of when you can switch parties before the election back. So it used to be, 3 weeks before the election you could switch parties. Well, now you can't switch parties until after June 1st, which is the filing deadline for candidates. So you can't wait to see if there's going to be a candidate in this race that you're waiting for. So we moved it back to try to prevent some of that switching back and forth. The way it's America, so people have the freedoms to technically switch parties. That is something that is out there. We try to. Obviously we want you to be a part of the party because you believe in our values, you believe in our systems, and our principles and everything like that. And part of that is us as people, as Republicans, educating people on why, because a lot of people don't know, you've seen the list that says I'm a Republican because, that has 10, 15 different things on there. We need to be, as Republicans, talking to our neighbors, talking to our friends at coffee, talking to everybody, why we're Republican, because a lot of people don't know everything we believe in. They just see what's on the news. Well, we know exactly how some of that stuff on the news is. And so it's up to us to tell people for us to tell people why, we believe in these conservative values and explain that to them. Explain the issues to them. A lot of them don't know the details and what goes behind, some of these issues. It's easy. Mark's been a champion for the pro-life movement, talking about why, it's why he's pro-life, why it's important for that. So whatever the issues are, we need to make sure we're explaining that to people, why we believe in it and why it's the Republicans that have the right message and the right values and the right solutions, for our country. There's a lot on that, and I wish you could just, make one or two quick changes and fix all that, but that's just not the way, it is. Yeah.
I heard a little bit of rumbling in the state legislature. It seemed like it was about a month and a half ago. Are we supporting a convention of the states?
The Republican Party has not officially taken a position on the Convention of States. Now, I will say that most of your people that are part of it are supportive. The Convention of the States, it's not a new concept. There have been times before when they've gotten, you get up to about the 33, 34 number of states that have supported this, and all of a sudden Congress is like, okay, let's go ahead and make that change, because they don't want to see a Convention of States happen. They want to keep that power. They don't want power back in people's hands. So once you get to the number of states to sign on to a Convention of States, when you get pretty high up there, they start acting pretty quickly on trying to resolve whatever the issue is. The Convention of States this time, and there's others out there, but the ones that I know you're referring to, dealing with the balanced budget amendment and, the states' rights and that kind of thing. I say it's relatively new. Yes, it's been around for several years, but it's educating people about the process. So why not talk to my friends that are part of the states' rights? Not state rights, but the convention group here in Kansas. The biggest advice I have for them is educate people what the process is. A lot of people don't fully understand what the Convention of States is, how that process works. They probably don't remember that since college when they were they were told about, this is a way to change the Constitution.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Governor Greg Abbott of Texas that published about a 93-page document on that.
I believe that's correct.
Points of issues that would be used if we got to that point, and it was a very good document.
Yeah.
I like his ideas.
Yeah. But on that, to get more people behind that is educating about the process. And I even have questions myself. My question, when I first started hearing about it, I mentioned earlier I'm a big Second Amendment guy. Well, if you call a convention of the states, how do you know that doesn't open up any other amendment to be messed with?
Yeah, runaway convention.
If you have a runaway convention. So, it's taken me a while to warm up to the idea that that's the best way to do it. That is a way. Because my concern was, well, what if somehow, you have an incident like, one of these shootings right before they hold the convention, and all of a sudden half the people there say, yeah, let's go ahead and let's tweak the Second Amendment so we outlaw rifles, and then what's the protection to make sure that doesn't happen?
I know.
And then they say, well, then it still has to be ratified by all these states. Well, there's that sliver of a chance that they could mess with my Second Amendment. That was why I've always had that need to educate myself more on the process and what is behind it.
I asked Russell Mills, who's an attorney down in Clearwater, what he thought of that. He said, I think it's kind of spooky. So he's not sure.
So I'm a prime example. And I have actually been taught. They've sat me down and talked me through a lot of that, and why shouldn't have to really worry too much about that. But that is part of the reason why you don't have complete buy-in with a lot of people, because they don't fully understand the process and how it works, and how we're not going to make sure we get rid of the Fifth Amendment, or whatever, or add an amendment that reinforces some other people's rights that they want, So, yeah, Myron.
Hey, I had two questions. Since how does the National Republican Assembly and like the Kansas Republican Assembly, we're not, I guess, we're not officially recognized by the party.
Oh, no.
I don't know under
You know, we're called an ancillary group. I didn't even know what the word ancillary meant,
Okay.
and I still can't spell it. I think it's ANNICILLARY. It means we don't want to be under the control of the Republican Party, and they don't want us. It's a perfect situation. We view ourselves as the rudder of the party. We view ourselves as the ones who come up with platform items. We have a very specific role, but we don't want to be under control of the state party chairman. We have a good one now, but what if you had a bad one? So we don't want them to be able to say, I'm going to appoint so-and-so for KRA this or KRA. No, that's got to come from, we're so strictly grassroots. In fact, some people look at the NFRA as a umbrella group for the Tea Parties, and we've played that role. And so we don't want to be.
You have a separate voice from the party when you need to talk about these issues.
The rudder is separate from the ship, and we're the rudder.
Had some feedback that, like we want to keep you guys separate. We don't. I'm like, not that radical.
Even if you were.
You look at some of the party people, then you won't have to worry too much about that. But and I'll just talk more general. I mean, it's what he's talking about right there. Because here's the other thing from a campaign strategy. We want, and this is the model that Democrats did. How did Democrats take back North Carolina and Colorado? They didn't do it through the Democrat Party, okay? What they did is they created multiple little front groups. But behind the scenes, these groups were all talking to each other. But from the front, they look like different ones. Well, they wrote a whole book about this. They're doing the same thing here in Kansas. I mean, you've one of the biggest organizations that tries to come out as a neutral organization is it the Kansas Women or Women for Kansas group? They are going into each of these counties trying to start clubs. But look what they're doing. All they're talking about is Democrat issues. They're bringing Democrat candidates in. It's a front group for the Democrat Party to try to recruit your just women in general to come to their organization thinking they're coming to just a women's, organization. Well, ultimately, no, it's a Democrats group, and there's multiple groups like that in Kansas, and that's what they did in Colorado and North Carolina. So you had all these volunteers. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's kind of like, because we do have groups that push Republican issues, but are not Republican, such as like AFP, Club for Growth, some of these others. Well, you have a lot of people that will go volunteer for AFP that don't want to have anything to do with the Republican Party because they have an issue that either something happened or a lot of times, and this is the one thing, I smile as soon as they say it, and then I always start drilling into them with questions. But I have somebody says, well, I don't like that, I've been a Republican all my life, but I don't like the Republican Party and what they're doing. I'm like, well, you're talking to me as state party chairman. Who are you talking about? Because the Republican Party can be anybody. Are you talking about the RNC? Are you talking about Trump? Are you talking about Paul Ryan or Mitch McConnell? Are you talking about the Kansas Republican Party? Are you talking about Tanya Buckingham? I mean, who do you have an issue with? Because I will tell you, I guarantee you probably don't have a problem with our Republican Party here.
Now, the second part, now, this group, the Republican Assembly, is recognized by the national group.
Yep.
There's another group that calls themselves the Kansas Republican Assembly.
Are they still?
They're not doing
that's
much,
not
but they're
active,
maintaining
are they?
the website and they're
Oh, do
taking
they?
money. That's
really?
what really bothers me is if we have people say, I sent you guys $1,000. I'm saying, we didn't get a penny of that. I said, well, we sent it here. They're still getting money.
Do you know who's control of that?
Oh, there's lots of people still giving money. And
Well,
the
I mean,
website's
who's?
still up.
I was gonna say,
I
do you
know
know
the
who's
people.
behind it? Okay.
Keith Esau is
Oh,
one,
okay,
one
yeah.
of them.
Well, I remember
So-
back in the day, Keith and Jared Soon and those guys back in the day.
they
were
had
part of
had
that.
real problems with the ultra conservative side of the party, and in Sedgwick County, the traitor. I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, we don't need to
We're
get
not
into
going
that,
to. Well, we're on tape here, and I'm not going to badmouth anybody. But it was a bad split, and the worst was the money issues. That was never settled. And the National Federation of Republican Assemblies, they had to re-charter, and they just took those few of us that were loyal, and
Yeah.
so we've been chartered since 2004, I think is the.
Yeah, because I honestly didn't know that they still had.
Well,
had
they were
websites and
real
stuff like that.
active, but
But in the mid 2000s, I remember they were.
we solved that problem mostly by sending out a letter, just by email, to every office holder in Kansas who was registered as a Republican, that if they were endorsed by the Renegade Party or the Renegade Assembly, that they were not allowed to publish that. And I sent along with them our copy that that we're the official charter,
Yeah.
and showed them the link to the national website that we are the official group, and so that really took the wind out of their sails, and that really helped a lot. But they're still alive.
Okay,
They're still
I honestly didn't know they still had
Yeah.
some group around. Yeah.
This is kind of a technical question for you, but if you were elected, you'd be over the notary publics.
Yeah, if you want to be a registered notary, you register your Secretary of State's office.
I
Yep.
have one.
Yep.
And I've notarized people that concealed carry permits, notarized a few years back an immigrant for their application. And I've been a certified loan signing agent as well, so many years. And so the problem we have with Kansas Notary Publics is that it is almost to the point of being silly. There's no pre-training and pre-testing.
So as a county clerk, I have all my deputies notarized to do documents, and this is one of the things that I'm right there with you, because they have no training. They give you a manual that's like that thick,
See, I had a
full of
bill up
stuff,
there last year.
Nobody reads it.
and nobody reads it. And then theoretically, you should be. Well, some people don't even use a notary block. They just stamp it, but don't do the notary block. And there's different things you need to do. Well, and also, do you verify the person's identity? When you get their thing. And then on top of that, I make all of my deputies. We have notary books, so they fill out your information in a section of that book, and for each person they notarize. So if something ever comes back from several years down the road, we can come back and say, yep, this is the person's identification that they showed me, that I verified it, this is it. Most notaries never do a notary book.
A lot of notaries don't even know the difference between what I call a jurat and an acknowledgement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You have to administer an oath or an affirmation.
Here-
I combine the two into one.
Here's what I would like to do. I mean, because and I don't talk about
I had a bill up there last year trying to get retraining.
on
pre-testing.
that.
Yeah.
On that. So it's not an issue many people even think about, so I don't normally talk about when I'm talking to groups. But I would like to be able to, require, say, video training testing. A lot of people, I get it, they don't like to read, a 20 or 30 page book, to be a notary. Well, let's put together a video program and to make sure you're highlighting the important parts of being a notary, things that you need to be doing, and put that, say, on a website where you can go, sit down, take a half hour, whatever, it would take to get the information to the person who wants to be a notary. Make them watch the video, answer a few questions at the end of each segment to know that they paid attention to it. And that's at least one way to try to help train and educate people on what their role is as a notary.
There is an organization called the Notary Law Institute, and I was a member of that last
Yep.
year. And one of they have a lot of information. They got 4 books published on it. Notaries across the country. There was a Secretary of State in North Carolina that actually issued 300 notary commissions to DACA recipients last year.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. So, there's a lot of abuse in that system. But we do need pre-testing and retraining, or we're going to look like idiots.
Yeah. Well, it's a very important role being a notary. You are basically, kind of signing a document that would be held up, in a legal court of law.
Yeah, and there was a case, Vancouver versus Catras. I think it was up in Indiana, if I remember right. There was a notary public up there that notarized something working for FedEx on a real estate deal, and he notarized the document without the signer present. Turned out later it was a forgery. The FedEx company got sued. They appealed it, and the appellate court reversed the lower court and held the notary responsible for all damages and court costs.
Yeah. I'm going to hit a couple, just go through a few more things, and
As
I'm
long
going
as you know it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get going here. I forgot that you're on the west side and I'm on the west
Okay,
side, so
no,
it gave me
You
a
got
little bit more
time. Okay, that's
buffer.
good. We'll take all the time you got.
So just more stuff into on a national level. The RNC, here's a change for the RNC. For the last 8 years before Trump was elected, the goal of the RNC was basically to push back on the Obama administration. So our communications, our messaging, everything we put out there was to go against the administration. We now are the administration because we have Trump in the office. So our communications team basically has had to do a 180. We are now kind of like a spokesperson for the administration, not just administration, but for the Republicans and what they're trying to get accomplished in Washington D.C. And so we've made a lot of changes in that. We are focused, continue to be focused like we were we started in 2012. We really got it built in 2014, and then by the time the 2016 election cycle came through, we really built this nationwide grassroots field team that's out there. Our RNC chair just announced that we now have 300 paid staffers working in states, obviously in key races that we're looking for. I'm working with the RNC right now to try to get some staff here because we have a second congressional race that's going to be extremely important to us. I mean, obviously we have a governor's race, but that second district race is going to be very challenging. The Democrats have their number one candidate in the state running, and that's Paul Davis. He is a known person, and he likes to raise money. We still don't know who our candidate's going to be yet, so it's going to take money, outside money, from our Republican friends to help
You
make
mean
sure.
4th district doesn't know yet?
Second district.
Okay.
So that's the one. And the 4th district also has a primary on the Democrat side too. Now James Thompson is acting like he's the going to be the candidate. Well, I'm not so sure about that. That's what my Democrat friends are. Here's another thing, and I don't have time to get into it. Democrats are in absolute war with each other. On a national level, that's why they're not raising money. But on the state level, I mean, you've read some of the comments. I mean, they're suing each other in the state of Kansas. I mean, they're having a battle, and it's kind of like some of the Wichita people versus the Topeka people, but it's the Jim Ward people versus the Kathleen Sebelius people. I mean, it's just they are at an absolute war with each other. Now, I do tell people that, but I also, again, back to that doesn't mean that we can relax and not worry about what they're doing. But they are having major issues within their own party on a state level. And so as a state party and the actual operations of the party, we are definitely very much ahead of where they're at. We have hired a new executive director in the state of Kansas. It's probably got one right here. He hired an executive director this week. His name is Jim Joyce. Clay Barker was there. Very talented person. He did an awesome job for us. He's now working with Jeff Collier for him. But Jim Joyce comes with a lot of campaign experience, and that's what we need in 2018. I mean, this is a job he's going to have for 2018. And so we need somebody that is going to be able to help partner with with our Clean Sweep program, which is working with our federal candidates and working with our governor. He's going to be top of the ticket this time, and making sure that we focus on all the down ballot races all the way down to the bottom of that ballot. And so that takes a lot of coordinating, working with, and having somebody that has experience. So Jim Joyce is in there. Our plan is to have paid field directors. Working in whether we break them up by congressional district or different ways, but having directors that are working with organizations like you to say, okay, what are the targeted areas we need to be walking and making phone calls for. We know that the second congressional district is going to be a race we're going to be focused on. Well, let's break that down. Inside that second congressional race, there may be 3 or 4 House seats that we're really fighting for, but we're going to put a lot of our efforts in those specific districts because, yes, it will help our second congressional, but it will also help that House candidate too. That's kind of that concept of the clean sweep, and I will tell you, not every state has something like this. In fact, very few have have a team where they all work together to help each other out. So, trying to think of a few other things. I think that's really what I wanted to touch base on. But go ahead, and then I'm gonna have to head out.
Is Kevin Yoder decided to run for reelection?
Yeah, he has.
Okay, so the second district's the only one that we're gonna have a primary.
Well, there is somebody that's filed against Yoder, but it's not somebody that, is gonna give a major challenge to Yoder, if you know what I mean.
I think the second district could be massive.
Yeah, second district's got 7 candidates at this point, and I'm not, and we got a lot of great candidates. We got, several senators, a House rep, a couple others that, bring great backgrounds and ideas. So, I mean, I feel very confident once we know who our candidate is, we will have a good candidate to run against Davis. Yeah.
One question.
Why do I get the feeling that on the NRC, instead of being against Obama, we just seem to be against the conservative Republicans now?
You mean back then or now?
Here.
I think it's changing.
I wouldn't say we're against conservative Republicans. I'll tell you this. People used to think that the RNC, was a bunch of establishment. Well, I will tell you as an RNC member, very, very far from that truth. We are a very pro-life, pro-conservative committee men, committee women. I mean, you look at myself, you look at Helen Van Etten, Mark Kars. These people, just like us, we're replicated in all these other states. So the party itself is a very conservative. We have what's called this conservative steering committee. It's kind of like, a separate group from the RNC, but it's RNC members. Well, there's 168 members in the RNC. Our conservative steering committee has 130 some members. So you think about that, out of 168, 130
Pretty good majority.
And we are a very pro-life, pro-Christian conservative steering committee. So yeah, I mean it is. This goes to that point where I kind of talked earlier about when somebody says they have concern that we're establishment or this or that. I try to drill down. Well, what do you mean by that? Because I think yes, there definitely is establishment candidates, or not candidates, elected officials out there. Some that have been there for 40 years. Those type of things. But the overall party itself, I mean, some people are like, man, you guys are constantly against Donald Trump, and I'm like, there's not a thing that we do that we don't run by President Trump and get his approval. And President Trump himself is out there saying how great the RNC is and support and stuff like that. So I always like to get further understanding what somebody's saying. Yes.
Well, the RNC puts out a lot of emails.
A lot, yes. Usually do.
Are they, but some of the things that they say, is that coming directly from Trump, or are they?
So, as much as I can say, because you have the President Trump and his administration, you have a political wing for the administration. You have Trump 2020, which is his campaign now, ran by Brad Parscale, which is a Kansan, by the way. He did the digital. He's an amazing person. And so then you have the RNC. Well, so we are all talking daily to each other. I mean, whether it's on a specific issue, whether it's talking about North Korea and how we talk about North Korea, or if it's a legislative action like some bill. So we're all talking to each other to make sure we have a unified message coming out. Now I'm not saying that the RNC is driving the topics on this stuff all the time. It's sometimes the White House is saying, we really need to be pushing this. The White House, one week may be saying we really need to be talking about the border wall a little bit more. So, you'll see an email from us about the border wall,
On the way up here tonight, Mark Levin on his radio show was announcing the names of who voted yes and no on that.
Yeah. On the bill today?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then there's some of those things that I agree. There are things that we're putting in that bill that have no business being in that bill. But, do you kill the whole bill because you have some bad things? Sometimes there is an issue or two that you say, yes, it's important enough you kill the whole bill.
You need a line item veto.
Sometimes, I know, I wish
Hold on, before
Yeah.
you, I'm gonna hold you for just one
Yeah.
thing. Item I on my agenda, we were talking about the governor's candidates, and I understand there's something new in
So,
the
All
in
right.
the works, and that's the state party sanctioning rules and limits.
So I will give you a brief 2-minute
30 seconds is all I
2-minute
need.
rundown, no less on this. So the candidates started getting an invitation from the Kansas City Star on a debate that they wanted to have back in December. And so the candidates actually called us and said, hey, we're already getting a request for a debate. I mean, you know, this is a year, almost a year out. And they're like, is there any rules, guidelines, or how are we going to handle all these debates? So we as a party said, listen, the RNC took over the debates in 2016, and we saw how much better that was. Because in 2012, you saw all these MSNBC and all these moderators trying to slice and dice our candidates up because
Right.
that's what they want. They tried to hurt us.
Mr. Interrupter.
So yeah, so we said, listen, we will facilitate an agreement if you guys want to, and if you don't want to, that's fine. And if you get majority of candidates on it, we'll do it. And so we said, tell us what you would like to see. And we'll put in an agreement, and we'll go talk to the other candidates to be that facilitator so the candidates don't have to talk directly to each other. And so here are the things. They're like, well, we don't want to be standing on stage for 2 hours. Okay, how about 90 minutes? 90 minutes work? All right, we got 90 minutes. Well, we want to make sure that all of our candidates have equal time. Well, you know what the media wants? They want Chris Kobach and, ask
Donald
him
Trump.
a million questions about whatever he's doing.
Right.
Well, then you got, say, Ken Seltzer or, at the time, at O'Malley or Barnett or somebody over here that, maybe the media doesn't want to talk as much to. So it's like we want to make sure we have good candidates. We want to give them equal time on stage. So we put into that you have to give everybody basically equal time so that the debate's not dominated by one or two candidates only. I think that only serves our Republicans to get it so they get to hear what everybody has to say. There was no surrogates. If you can't show up, you can't send somebody else. So that was one of the agreements. So there's things like that were put into an agreement, put it back to everybody, made a few minor adjustments here and there. And then the other one is they said, we have our own campaigns to run. We have our own strategy. Some people need to be in Southeast Kansas. Some candidates need to spend more time in Western. Some need to spend more time in Johnson County. They were like, we don't want to have a debate every two debates a week running all over the state when I need to be over here campaigning. So we said, fine, and we started at different numbers. We ultimately, everybody agreed on, all right, we'll have 4 debates, 1 in each district. So we limited the number of debates that they had. So that's the agreement that we have. It's a new thing for us. So far, we feel like it's working. Our candidates have been happy with it.
And this is a primary?
This primary
function?
only, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if we may have to wait, and we're happy. We invite Democrats all the time.
So okay, well, and
So we might wait for the.
Here was a thing that we were very clear with our candidates. We want to put our candidates out in front of as many people as possible, right? We don't want to hold any of our candidates back. So we said we're not regulating, if a county party or a Republican Party organization wants to invite you and have a forum, or any Farm Bureau forums. So we made a difference between what's a forum and what is a debate. Your debate is when you're kind of really getting that back and forth. You'll have rebuttals, you have opening statements, closing statements, that kind of thing, right? A forum is where you invite your candidates, you give them, you got 7 minutes to say whatever you want. You give them each 7 minutes to say whatever they want. And then maybe you ask a question, but you got to get everybody to answer that same question.
So we can do that.
You can do that.
Okay,
So
okay.
you're
so-
good with it.
All right, so that's what we
just
normally
don't
do
want
anyway.
a debate. And
Well, we
yet-
would just have to, we would have to modify what we do.
Yep.
Because we do, we would allow, normally in
So,
a forum,
and-
we would allow that.
And
but we'll go along with
and
that.
and we say no questions from the audience. What we want is if you do that people can pre-submit them, but say you as a moderator or host of the forum would be asking the questions. What we try to get away from is somebody from an audience that wants to take that
Standing up,
opportunity to
grandstanding,
and do that kind of stuff or attack a candidate when
Right.
it's not fair and
Right,
and that
especially
kind of
if you have media there.
Yes, and the other thing is, some of these farm bureaus or whatever wouldn't say, well, we're inviting all the governor candidates. Well, to them that means Democrats and Republicans. Well, our Republican candidates need to be focused on our Republican issues right now.
Right.
So we don't want the Democrats to be there to start attacking our Republicans when we're trying to talk about our Republican stuff. So that'd be the other thing.
Excellent answer. Kelly, you're outstanding.
Always happy to,
Outstanding presentation.
you know, discuss more and
You bet.
everything like
Thank you so
that.
much. Thank you very much. Okay, let's give Kelly a big round of applause. Okay, that takes care of item F, G, H, and I. We're down to item J on the agenda. Do I have anybody here that would like to talk about changing and modifying the candidate questionnaire? Go ahead. If you would like to help with that, now's the time to speak, because those have to be done real soon, and we need to start getting them out. In fact, if we didn't have to make changes to them, I would already be mailing them out to those people that have already filed, so that we don't have such a bottleneck like we did last year, with all of them going out at once and then all of them coming back at once and having a hard time distributing the information. So, is there anybody here that feels real strongly about any particular questions you wanted to have asked on the candidate questionnaires, or should we just leave this to Debbie Baker and myself, because we're the ones that put them together? And Troy Newman, he looks over our shoulder or wants to see what we did. He wants to see the finished work, and then, you know, if he's happy with it, then we're all happy, so.
That depended upon what office the candidate.
Well, see, that's why there's so much change going on here. A little history on that is, in the past, well, in the first, we didn't do any candidate questionnaire, okay? Then we had one generic, you know, everybody got the same one. It didn't matter whether you were running for precinct committee man or governor of Kansas, you were getting the same candidate questionnaire. And that's not as effective as it needs to be. If you're running for judge, the questions really should be a lot different than if you're running for Secretary of State, or if you're, you know, you're gonna have some different responsibilities, and the questions should reflect that. And so that is what we're trying to do. But as far as how many questionnaires, you know, and just what we're going to do is start with the basic one and then modify it with the particular questions to that race. There are some questions that would be on every questionnaire. So anyway, if you want to work on that project, speak now. Let me know, because otherwise it's going to be Debbie Baker, myself, and Troy. And we're not the whole organization. I like to have input from everybody.
Depends on where and when you're gonna do that, for me.
Well, I'll put you on the email list then, and we'll, I don't know yet when. It's gonna depend on when Debbie's available. She was coming tonight until the last minute, and then she
My
wasn't.
work is just now coming into the time of year when I'm really busy. So.
Right, okay, Brian?
Do we want to have any questions that might probe as far as, or maybe a suggestion that perhaps we have a few questions that might illuminate, especially as, because last cycle, we kind of had return of the rhinos in the anti-brownback wave.
Right.
I'm thinking maybe perhaps we should have a few questions that might probe where one might lie on the rhino versus.
See, maybe you should be on the list too. I'll put both of your names on the list.
Okay.
Anybody else want to be on that? Myron, you have strong feelings? What I don't want to hear, I mean, obviously there's nobody here tonight to talk to, but what I don't want to hear is what we had in 2016, you know, people saying, well, I didn't have a chance to ask this. Why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you ask that? And, you know, you can always improve. You know, there's no doubt. Every candidate questionnaire, I think we got a pretty good basic questionnaire, but, you know, we're trying to grow and make it even better, so.
You know, in a public debate, the worst debate I think I've ever seen in my growing up 70 years of life is the vice president debate, you know, back in 16 between Pence and Kane. Kane was interrupting Pence about 76 times, I think the count was, during that time. It was the most crude, constant interruption by Tim Kaine I ever saw of anybody in the past. That's definitely something to avoid.
Well, maybe you want to put a question about that on the questionnaire. Do you interrupt?
I contacted CNN because it was their moderator.
Yeah.
And, I said, you know, as a major in broadcasting management, I'm a real media critic, that if it had been me up there as a producer, I would have fired the moderator on the spot in front of everybody, taken it over and had the control room cut the microphone to the one that wants to interrupt.
Well, it was nice to see Kelly Arnold so aware of all of this and so on top of it. I'm real pleased about hearing about how this sanctioning rules came about. So, okay, well, I've got two people, Brian and Art. I'll add you to the list. That brings us down to the announcements. Obviously, everybody here knows about the pachyderm, the Coalition for Life. I'm always needing help. The Kansas Coalition for Life. I need help every day. I have about 211 volunteers that stay out at the abortion clinic in a shift, hour shift, handing out literature. We are on baby number 520. Our last three are still pregnant, and we're having a real hard time raising money because we have the last three. It used to be, from number 1 all the way up through about number 499 or so. We didn't have a big slug. There's, everything is ebbs and flows, but all of a sudden we have 3 in a row that are 100% need 100% rent, utilities, everything, and the next one, rent, utilities, everything. The third one, rent, utilities, everything. And man, we raise a lot of money, and we spend a lot of money. We pay a lot of rent and so on, but having 3 in a row like this, and all of them real early term. So, we got them in December, and in December there was, they were all early in their pregnancy. So we have never had this big of a financial load. We got some people helping, but we need help that way too. And hopes that, praise God, we still have all 3 babies alive. So we're hoping that's going to work out.
Do you know who the speaker's going to be in pachyderm tomorrow?
I should put that on here, but I don't do that. I get the email and I file it because I'm going to be there anyway, and I'll see when I get there. Do you go to the pachyderm meeting?
No, I was planning to go tomorrow because
Tomorrow you come as my guest, okay? You're welcome to do that. Okay, so I got that taken care of. Our next KRA meeting is on April 26th. It'll possibly be the new leader of the Department of Children and Families, or it might be a candidate forum within the rules of whatever applies there. It won't be a debate unless we can get that for that race. For our Secretary of State candidates. That is going to be a very interesting race, and one of the candidates is Kelly Arnold, who was here. So, should be an interesting one.
Tomorrow will be Dr. Wolf von Leer, CEO of Students for Liberty. The topic is the case for optimism, how young people change the world.
Okay, very good.
Just wanted to talk about one other quick thing here.
Go ahead.
Is, the adoption issue, and there's two parallel issues on adoptions right now. And one of them is the foreign adoptions, which is way down from what it used to be. And there was something on that in the news just the other day too about that I got from someone. But the other one is the pro-life film, which I told you about. It's called I Lived on Parker Avenue. And that's about a guy, it's about a 30-minute video on YouTube. It's just called I Lived on Parker Avenue. I advise everyone to take a look at that. This is about an adopted child that I grew up, and they give all the details of it. But he was from what is called the little town of Metairie, which is a suburb of New Orleans, Metairie, Louisiana. That's what I heard them pronouncing it down there. So, you get a
very
chance to
good.
look at that.
My understanding of the recent slump in adoptions, at least what I have been hearing reported on the radio, was that the person in charge of it is actually a pro-abortion persuaded individual, and they have apparently been using that to their advantage to make it more difficult and making the regulations more difficult.
Yeah, I think the adoption level used to be, what was it, over 100,000 per year, and is down to 5,000. That individual you're talking about was wanting to raise the foreign adoption fee from $40,000 to 1,000% above that to discourage even more of it. They're
Yeah.
trying to, which of course, the other side of that, what does that do for the abortion industry? That's what they're supporting.
Yep. That's politics. That's politics for you. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Art has made the motion. Brian has seconded the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.